Good day to you all. Namaste, Hare Krishna. So I felt that after this morning's talk there was a few things we didn't get to talk about due to time restrictions, and also that there was some interesting questions generated from the talk, of which most of them we answered that have come so far during the talk, but there was a couple that came afterwards. So just like to discuss those. So some things that I wanted to talk about. One was that I had mentioned that the Vedas is like a universal law book, and we know that you have law, and then you have a lawyer, someone that's practicing the law. So the Vedas is the law. But sometimes, like I presented the universal law, the Vedas, this morning, and people might say, well, you've wrongly interpreted it, or there's some other angles you could have looked at it from. And that's true, that can happen. And therefore you need a lawyer. So not only just have the law book, but you always have a lawyer too. Someone that's expert in law, who knows the law, and they live by the law. So in the case of the Vedas, then who's the lawyer? And that's the spiritual master, the guru. So we didn't really talk much about that, but I think it's important. So I wanted to cover it here. And I'd come to the conclusion through my understanding of the Vedas that dairy products can be taken by a spiritual practitioner on the premise that we don't like to see the animals suffering in the modern dairy industry. That's a fact. But we need to take the dairy to develop our brain. That's a fact. So we don't want to stop taking the dairy products. However, we don't like hurting the animals, so what to do? So what I explained was that we should set up our own farms and look after the cows in the proper traditional way according to Vedic culture, to protect the cows for their whole life and not exploit them, look after them, take some milk. So that's what we want to set up. But that's not going to happen, as I said, overnight. It's going to take some time. So in the meantime, we continue taking the dairy from the commercial dairy industry, and we offer it. And that's what I explained. That's what this point hinged on. That those dairy products, which has come from cows that have suffered, we should offer it to the Supreme. And then there's a process of doing that, and it's called, to make prasadam, which means mercy. Prasadam means mercy. So we offer the food to the Supreme, whether you call him Krishna or other names, Jehovah, Allah, and so forth. And there's a whole process of doing that. And then the food becomes sanctified, and the animal benefits by its milk being offered to Krishna. And what I also didn't explain fully is that we also benefit by offering that food. Like I explained, my background was that I was also involved in eating cows, and my father was shooting cows and all that kind of thing. So, and I'd mentioned that according to the Vedas, the reaction for killing cows is that we have to suffer in a hellish existence for as many hairs as there are on the body of the cow. But what I didn't fully get to explain is that by us taking part in that process of offering food to the Supreme, not only the cow benefits, but also we, the person that's offering, also get freed from all those reactions of in the past that we've killed cows and so many other bad things we may have done. So this is a brilliant process called Bhakti Yoga. So everything involved in that process of Bhakti Yoga, an offering of loving service to the Supreme Being, whether it be the cows or the person that cooked the food that got offered, or the person that actually offered it, or whatever like that, supplied the ingredients, everyone benefits, win, 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 like that. But if we don't do that, then it's lose-lose. If we don't offer the dairy to the Supreme, and the cow just suffers meaninglessly, we ourselves get all the reactions of our previous, time that we were being involved with killing animals and so forth like that. But anyway, people may argue that I've wrongly interpreted the Vedic law books or whatever. But however, the ultimate evidence is in what the lawyer says. So we have that evidence from a most enlightened spiritual master named His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada that spread this Krishna culture all over the world from the time of 1965 to when he left this world in 1977, spread Krishna culture all over the world and founded an international society named ISKCON and so forth, wrote so many books and everything like that, did amazing miracles like that. So here's no question about his being a qualified spiritual lawyer, you could say. And what was his example, his practice? He took the commercial dairy. Right from when he went to America in 1965, he took the commercial dairy, even though he knew, it's not that he's ignorant, that, the cows have suffered or whatever like that. However, as soon as he developed the society and he got people that were interested to support him and everything, he got them to set up farms and to get cows and then to protect the cows for their duration of their life. And they would, by hand, milk the cows and take the milk and make yogurt and paneer and drink hot milk and everything like that. So that's what he did. So for me, that completely confirms what the right path is. That's what he did by his example. Took the commercial dairy, but in the meantime, try to set up a better system where we follow the traditional culture of looking after the cows, protecting the cows, and then take the dairy. But in any scenario, keep taking the dairy like that. And I'll give you one little example, further confirmation, that one of Prabhupada's disciples came to him and said, Prabhupada, all the milk in America has fish oil in it. So you'll notice even to this day in America, it's got vitamin D added on the bottle of every bottle of milk. It's got vitamin D added in America. Guess where the vitamin D added comes from? It comes from fish oil. So that point was told to the spiritual master. And what did he say? Don't drink it because it's contaminated? No. He said what to do. Just drink it, because we need that. Remember, this is the basic Vedic principle, is that there's a miracle food called milk, which helps develop special tissue in the brain for spiritual realization. So that's what we explained lots about that this morning, so we're going to go over that again. But I'll just point out that often it's mentioned that milk is a miracle food. So what is the miracle of milk? What's the miracle about it? The miracle is that ordinarily, you can't get spiritual realization from a material object. You need some spiritual thing, some spiritual object to give you a spiritual benefit. But this is an exception to the rule. This is a material object, milk. It's just a material thing, milk. But it helps you get a spiritual realization. So that's why it's called a miracle. It's a miracle food. Often it's said in the Vedas, the miracle in the form of milk. The miracle food, milk. That's a miracle. From a material thing can give you a spiritual experience, a spiritual elevation from a material thing. That's extraordinary. You can't get that. I can't think of any other material thing that can help to elevate you spiritually. Like, for example, drugs. You know, people thought, like especially in the hippie days in the 60s, they could get a spiritual experience by taking LSD and so forth. But as Swami Prabhupada pointed out, you can't get spiritual experience realization from a material drug. But however, milk is the exception. That's why it's called a miracle. Completely a miracle. You can get your spiritual elevation from just drinking a material thing like milk. So this is a special mercy from the universe, from Krishna, to help us get out of this miserable material world by providing this wonderful cow, which is like a mother, and giving us milk like the mother does, and just help us to progress spiritually. So this is a special kindness to us, which we should take use of that, miracle food. And so now in answer to some interesting questions came up afterwards. One is that John has commented here a few hours ago, without taking milk products, I will not get spiritual realization. So he's saying that's sort of what I was indicating in my talk, that without taking milk products, we will not get spiritual realization. So that's one part of the talk. He's feeding that back to me. Is that true, what I was saying? And then he's further on to that saying, how does this explain many spiritual practitioners we know that are clearly advancing in spiritual realization despite not taking any dairy? One could take from that statement that the chanting of the holy names is dependent on taking dairy products. Can you please clarify? So that's a very interesting question. Great question, John. And there's a couple parts to it. So it's saying there that it seems like there's some spiritual practitioners in there like vegans. They're not taking milk or dairy. So, and they seem to be advancing, but they're not taking milk. So that sort of seems to counter the argument that you need milk to advance spiritually. So what I would say in response to that is that those persons that are doing really well advancing spiritually being vegan, were they vegan from birth? Highly unlikely. Their formative years, especially in their youth, they've probably drunk tons of milk, cow's milk, and other dairy products as well. And I know from being a member of the Hare Krishna movement for 30 years, in any Hare Krishna centre around the world, they are having tons of dairy products, maybe too much. So those persons that are vegan now, and they're chanting and everything like that, they probably spent their first 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years of spiritual practice drinking tons of dairy products. So that's all in the system. The brain is developed. The tissue, that special tissue in the brain that's developed by drinking milk that we were talking about earlier today, that's been developed. So, okay, now you've cut off from the milk, but the special tissue in the brain is there. You've already, devoted your life to the Supreme and sacrificed everything for the Supreme. And you've learned everything. All the knowledge is already there. So now the last few years or whatever, you're a vegan. Yeah, but so what? So what? But however, you show me an example, someone that's spiritually advanced and vegan their whole life from birth, never had a drop of cow's milk. And let's have a look at that. Let's see. Anyone can tell me about such a person. And there may be an exception. I'm just giving you the general rule. These are general rules from the Vedas. There may be an exception. I tell you what, like I said, the general rule is only human beings are interested in spiritual realization. But there's an exception to that. There are very rare, super rare cases of a non-human being spiritually enlightened. A deer, for example, is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a deer that was highly enlightened. A dog, so forth. There's other creatures that did have some spiritual awareness. But that's rare. That's an exception. You can't base anything on that because that's like 0.00001% like that. But generally, it's only human beings. But yeah, there are exceptions. So maybe there is someone that's never had milk and they're doing all right spiritually. But that's not the norm, you know. So that's we can't hinge an argument on some very rare occurrence like that. But this is the general principle that, yeah, dairy products are definitely foundational, you know, to help us to, like I said, develop our consciousness, come to the mode of goodness, develop knowledge. And from when we have higher knowledge through developing our brain with milk and so forth, then we can start to think about higher things like who am I and who is God and why are we here and why are we suffering and all these kind of things like that. So that was a point there I just wanted to make about that. And it's also, the second part of the question is one could take from the statement that the chanting of the holy names is dependent on taking dairy products. So no, it's the chanting of God's names is not dependent on other things. However, I would say that this is the process given by the Supreme Being, by God Himself, has given these instructions for us to take care of the cows and utilize the dairy products, drink the milk, and saying this will help us to develop our brain and develop our spiritual life. So we should follow His instructions. It doesn't mean that He doesn't have the power through the holy name or some other way to get us, you know, enlightened, and through some other way, through just chanting or something. Sure, He can. I mean, there's nothing He can't do. I mean, God can set us free just by chanting or something else. However, He is telling us to, like I said, drink the milk, look after the cow, drink the milk, like that, develop your brain. So we should do that. You know, definitely He's got the power to do some different way. But no, the point I'd like to make is that we should follow the instructions coming from the higher authority, whether it's the spiritual master or God, but we should follow the instructions coming from the higher authority. I'm not saying that God can't just zap us with a beam of light and, you know, we're fully enlightened, you know, or we just chant the holy name and become enlightened. So that may be there, but like I say, you know, this is exceptional things. We can't all expect to be zapped by a beam of light. You know, so we have to follow the general recommendations. So that's what there. Another point was that Eka Radhika Leela said that, well, there's this Vedic follower in Hawaii named Narayan, is his name, and he's doing some lovely work there in Hawaii, and he's got heaps of cows that he protects for their whole life, and he milks some of them, and yeah, the cows are all blissful. They're all very happy. They're not getting exploited or whatever like that. It's called ahimsa dairy, not, you know, non-violent dairy products. So that's in Hawaii, and he's done it in a very unique way. He doesn't own any of the land, but somehow he's made some arrangement with the people there that have land for him to be able to keep his cows on their land. So she's just pointing out that he takes care of the cows without buying the land. And what would I say about that? Yeah, that's brilliant. It's fantastic. However, what I would say is that it's risky. It's risky because it's not his land, it's other people's land. So if they tell him tomorrow to please leave, bugger off, we don't want you and your cows here anymore, then what are you going to do with all those cows? Say you've got 100 cows or 200 cows or whatever. Then what are you going to do? You know, you had some land, but it wasn't your land, and they've told you, the owners told you to get lost. Then what are you going to do with those cows? I mean, heaven forbid if you have to get them to the slaughterhouse, because, I mean, you can't keep them in the back of your van. 100 cows, they need land, and if you lose the land, then you're up the creek without a paddle. So what I would say is, that's very good, and without spending any money, you've got some land for the cows. If you have a good friendship with some people, whatever. But I would say that it's not very secure, which is risky, especially with all those cows needing that land. If things change for some reason and you lose access to that land, then you're a goner. So that's my only concern for that situation. Otherwise, it's brilliant. And now there's a new question from Scotty here. Just a few minutes ago, said, what animal drinks milk after weaning? What animal drinks milk after weaning? This is a trick question, I think. So I don't know if Scotty's referring to a human animal. I was just saying that after when we were born, we drank our mother's milk, and then we got weaned off that, right? And now we're taking milk again, but from another animal, the cow. So I think Scotty's referring to that. That we don't often see that in other creatures, that they were taking milk, then they stopped taking milk, then they start taking it again. However, I would disagree a little bit with that, because I was on a farm in Australia, and I've seen a fully grown steer, that means a male cow that's been castrated, a fully grown steer that long time ago had weaned off the mother's milk, was drinking from a cow that may or may not have been its mother. So, I would say there are evidence that an animal drinks milk again after it's been weaned off. So I'm sure you're trying to trap me that human beings are doing the wrong thing by drinking milk after we stop drinking our mother's milk. But no, even other animals do that. I've seen it with my own eyes. Because I'm telling you, milk, especially cow's milk, is a miracle food. You can drink it when you're a baby, you can drink it when you're middle age, old age, when you're nearly dead. Milk is an incredible food. I'll tell you what, that if you go back far enough in time, the ancient yogis of the Himalayas and India and that's all they used to take. That's the only food. There are many cases of that going back in time. That's all they had. They didn't take anything else other than milk. It's a complete food. Cow's milk is a complete food. Of course, the modern day dairy industry, the grass is pretty crappy they feed cows on, and they feed them grains and stuff like that. So it might not be 100% complete now, but it used to be more complete, because the whole environment was more complete going back 1,000 years ago, or 2,000, 5,000 years ago. The air was better, the water was better, the grass was better, the food was better, the fruits was better, everything was better. More pure, less contamination, everything like that. So at that time, milk was complete. You could just live off milk alone. And I know there's some people today, they even still do that. So I disagree that that milk is something you're only supposed to have when you're a little baby, and then you're not supposed to have it anymore. Cow's milk particularly, is something you could have throughout your whole life. And I have said that, even I have seen a grown steer go back to drinking milk from another cow, and the cow was happy to do that. The cow was super happy. I'll tell you what, this steer drinking from the cow, mother cow, was bigger than the cow. The steer was like towering over the cow that was giving the milk. It was so huge, it definitely wasn't a baby. And yet the cow was happy to give the milk, and the steer was happy to drink it. And I saw the milk like dripping on the ground, and I saw all the foam on the mouth, so 100% guaranteed that that's there. So that logic is not good logic. Even after being weaned off milk, other animals go back onto it, and also humans can, no problem at all, no worries. And then Kaza is saying, might want to be more specific, because if you fed a calf with milk from shops now, the calf would die. Yeah, like I said, everything's contaminated now. I mean, you get the milk from the shop in a plastic bottle. I mean, plastic bottle's toxic, and then it's been homogenized. So that means homogenized means it's been completely screwed up. And then I got a friend that works in Fonterra, the dairy company here in New Zealand is Fonterra, and they said they turn all the milk into New Zealand into milk powder. Can you believe it? All the milk gets turned into milk powder, then they turn it back into milk. So they're from milk powder, then they go back, then you've got skim milk, non-fat, low-fat, this thing, that thing, blue top, everything like that. So it's so complicated, so adulterated. So, I mean, I agree with you. It's not a fully pure product. However, I would still say there is still some benefit from even that milk is better than nothing for your brain, for the development of your brain. But I would say, however, if you did have a brain, then you would try to find the best quality milk you can. And like I said, the best quality milk is to milk the cows yourself or be connected with someone that is doing it in a way that the cows have got free range and they're not going to be killed and they're only hand milk, not with machine, and we don't inject them with crap and all this kind of stuff. That's first class. We should think about getting that. And if you can't do that, I would say second best, approach a local farmer, and some of them are able to sell you or give you or whatever raw milk straight from after milking the raw milk. And then before it's been sent off to the dairy factory and processed the hell out of it, get it then when it's still at the raw milk stage. But I would tell you, please, emphatically from my own experience, also don't drink raw milk. Don't drink raw milk, because I thought that was healthy early on in my life, and as part of my speculation, I drank raw milk and I nearly killed myself. I had stuff coming out all the holes. I don't have to say more than that. Coming out of all the holes, stuff coming out. Because obviously some bacteria had got in there and multiplied millions of them. And then, I got very sick. That's why in India, no one drinks raw milk. No one would even think about it. You always boil the milk. And then kills any bacteria that are there. And then you drink it while it's hot. And that's easier to digest. Never drink milk cold out of the fridge. People get mucus problems and so forth because they don't know how to drink milk. They just drink it cold. You drink it hot. And then you boil it, then we'll let it cool down a bit, drink it hot, and add some spices to help digest, like turmeric, black pepper, ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, and so forth like that. And then you get the best benefit. So, yeah, I agree. It's pretty adulterated, contaminated, what you get from the shop, but you can get better than that. You can get better if you directly approach the farmer. Of course, you've got to look at the local laws, and if you want to follow the local laws. But like in New Zealand, it's pretty hard to get raw milk. There are a few people that have got through all the certification and everything to do it. There's one up here in Northland, and that's all legal, that you can buy raw milk from him. But he's got to go through a whole process to be able to do that legally. But there are other ways also, which you've got to decide for yourself what you want to do. You talk to a local farmer and stuff like that. Some may do. In other countries, it might not be a problem. You can just buy raw milk anywhere. That's easy. So it just depends on your local laws and what you want to do like that. But yeah, that's essential. We need to nourish the brain. We need as much brain power as we can to figure out who am I and why am I here and why am I suffering and what's going on and where am I going, where have I come from. I remember when I was young, I was so confused, so lost. So we need to get out of that. That's the human potential, to get out of that confusion and feeling lost. And taking the dairy products can help develop our brains so that we meet the right person that can give us the answers. And then if you've got a decent brain, you can understand what he's trying to tell you. When the spiritual master, if we have the good fortune to meet a spiritual master, and if we have a good brain and we can actually process and understand what they're telling us, then we can, make steps to get out of this suffering condition we're in. But even if you meet some nice person, but if you don't have a good brain, you know, it's in one ear out the other. So, you know, we just need to take whatever help we can. So there you go. So there's a few extra points, and my battery's just about to die. So I'll love you and leave you. Have a good day.